At Elite Renewables, we're lucky to work with lots of fantastic developers, and one of the very best is Simon Kay and his team at iLife. We're here today at one of their stunning new build projects to find out why they put renewables and renewable systems installed by Elite at the heart of so many of their projects. Let's go. Simon, amazing project. You must be really proud of how it's all turned out.
Very happy. It's been a long project, this one, and it's come out really well, and the client's delighted, and which obviously makes me very happy and makes the team very happy.
So, I mean, this is an incredible space here. You've got this beautiful view out onto the garden, really nice kitchen area, seating area. What's your sort of ethos when you're designing a property like this?
The main thing is when we're designing houses, we always try and make sure we utilise all the space. So there's nothing worse than hearing stories of people that have got huge houses and going to rooms at Christmas or going to a dining room once a year at Christmas. We design everywhere so that you utilise all the space. So for example, one of the rooms in this house had an area where we were unsure whether or not it was going to be an office for the clients, even though they had an office over the garage. So we had a room, for example, which was like going to be a nothing room. And I'll show you that in a moment. And we turned that into a golf sim. And it's absolutely fantastic. It gets used a lot. And it's a great asset for the house.
Fantastic. Should we take a look around them?
Yeah, absolutely.
Let's do it.
We were responsible for the ground source heat pump, the cooling and the solar PV panels. In the plant room you'll see a ground source heat pump, which is a 28 kilowatt 1355 Nibby, which is very similar to the one behind me, although this one is a bit newer in that it's inverter driven, whereas the one in the office is not, as it's slightly older technology. Alongside the ground source heat pump we have the hot water cylinder, which is 500 litres, and we also have a 300 litre heating and cooling buffer. The cooling buffer is connected to 9 fan coil units, which are strategically placed around the house, which provide cooling for all the rooms that he needs. The project was a little bit tricky to actually get cooling to all the spaces, so we had to have most of the cooling units in the loft area, and we've basically ducted down straight into the rooms from those areas. So in each room you'll basically see a linear slot grill on one end of the room and another one on the other end. The linear slot grills are basically blowing cold air in from one end and they're taking in that air from the other, and that's basically going into a loop which is then actually cooling through the ground source heat pump. And by doing that we're actually extracting heat from those rooms and putting them straight back into the boreholes, so it's a completely sort of reversible system, if you will. You're taking that heat from the rooms and you're putting it back into the boreholes. Therefore, when you actually need that heat in the winter to do your heating, it's already still there and it's actually topped up the borehole slightly, so it's super efficient. On this project as well, they have a swimming pool which we can actually use as a heat dump. When the client wants to heat the pool up, in the summer in particular, when they're doing their cooling, all of that energy is going from the house straight into the swimming pool, and it's pretty much heating up the pool for free. So it's a really good way of reusing that energy instead of actually having a separate air source heat pump or gas boiler to heat up your pool. So it's a good solution for them. We have 5 boreholes in the back garden that are effectively 120 meters depth each. So it's quite a lot. And all that energy that we're basically recovering are going straight back into there, and it's becoming a big thermal battery.
So Simon, this is a beautiful room. What was your thinking behind this, and what was this from a client specification? Was this part of the brief?
We were in that situation where the house was large enough to be able to actually have the games room downstairs and not have to worry about having it on the top floor. And the problem with having games rooms on the top floor is you don't want all the boys, for example, trooping up the stairs when the kids are asleep. So we decided that we'd try and utilise the pool table and the bar downstairs, and the footprint was large enough to be able to do that, and it turned out really well, and the client was over the moon with it.
So the pattern I'm getting from you here is it's a very thoughtful process designing these homes. You're thinking about the client's individual needs, and then there's a lot of practicality that's going into some of these choices.
There's a huge amount of thought put into the way the rooms work and the way the electrics are, the way the renewables are with the air conditioning, the way the cabinetry works with the wet fan coils. So everything has to be thought about, and it has to be thought about way before you start doing the actual works.
I'm glad you mentioned renewables and heating and cooling. Very even temperature around the home as well here. All underfloor heating, isn't it? And then you've got MVHR, you've got wet fan coils hidden in some of the cabinetry, including in this room. Is this something that you do for all of the projects, or has this come from the client's request?
The underfloor heating is a done deal. It's throughout all the projects. Even on the more cost-effective homes that we build, we make sure we try and put underfloor heating because people don't want to look at radiators. And it's also much more efficient to do underfloor heating. So you get that idea of being able to walk around with no shoes on, with your socks, and the idea of the warmth hitting your feet is
Game
brilliant.
changer.
Yeah,
You never go back.
Absolutely, absolutely. And even when you hear people going around some of my competitors' houses, they'll put radiators on the top floor. You're like, what are you doing that for? That looks horrendous. You need to have the underfloor heating.
And how about MVHR? Because we're noticing it's almost a default for a lot of luxury properties these
So
days.
one of the ways in which you have to get through building regs now is to have some sort of way of dealing with the fresh air coming to the houses. And the idea of having little splits on the windows, it doesn't do it. And the problem is people go away, people don't want the cold air coming in, and of course you've got this whole sick house syndrome thing going on where you start having mold and you start having stale air in the house. So the MVHR, it's a no-brainer.
Again, I think it's another one of those technologies where once you've experienced it, once you've lived in a home with the air constantly being cycled like that, you never go back.
Absolutely.
And what about heating and cooling? Because you actually use the ground source for cooling as well, don't you, in this property?
Yeah, it's absolutely fantastic. It took a little bit of getting the setup correct, but once you get the setup right, the running costs are absolutely fantastic. I mean, whereas you go into a room where it has air conditioning, the air conditioning is quite fierce. It's on for 20 minutes, you get down the temperature you want, but you have the constant thing of, you have to go and switch it off, and it's quite expensive to run. Whereas with wet fan coils, you just set the temperature on what you want it to be set on, and you're at that temperature all the time.
So this is your typical fan coil unit. This is doing the cooling in our office and also this client's home. Don't worry, they don't look like this. They are hidden completely behind the wall or false joinery, that sort of thing, or even in the loft in this case. This is your typical linear slot grille here. You'll have one for the cooling output and also the return air back to the unit. So once it's actually installed, it's very discreet and you normally run them at low power mode. So the reason this one's quite large is because we don't want it blasting out air really quickly. You just want a nice gentle breeze in the room so you don't actually notice it's on. The control systems we usually go for in customers' houses are heat misers because you can do underfloor heating or radiators and also the cooling as well. This one in particular, the HC1, this can do both of those, and this stops that problem where you're having heating and cooling on at the same time, which you see it everywhere. All the customer has to do is set the room temperature to their desired temperature, and the room will either do your heating or do the cooling depending on what mode it is, and it decides what mode it's in based on the temperature outside, because it will know if it's summer, it will know if it's winter, and it will know if it needs to do either heating or cooling. But the key is it's never going to do both at the same time, which is, again, as I say, you see it all the time and it's really bad for energy efficiency.
With this property as well, we're dumping some of that heat that's generated from the wet fan coils into the swimming pool, aren't we? So there's an extra efficiency saving there of not having to heat that swimming pool with new heat during the summer.
Yeah, it's fantastic being able to, again, get the house running at a really efficient way and saving yourself the cost of having to, whether or not it's a gas boiler or an air source heat pump. It's brilliant to be able to take the energy. It's free energy, which is exactly, it's a great word to use. It's free. I mean, I appreciate you've got the setup costs, but being able to have that going on, you know, especially when you've got the solar running the pool as well, you go onto the cheap rate tariffs at night with Octopus or whoever your chosen tariff person is. It's great to have everything running at a much, much reduced rate. I know, as my clients have told me in the past, energy from heaven, not from hell.
I love it.
That was actually when I first got involved in renewables, and actually rather than fighting it, because I had a client that wanted to embrace, he was an early adopter, and I was thinking, oh my God, this is going to be a pain in the arse. I don't, you know, do we really want to do this? And actually it's opened my eyes, and the saving costs of running a house are massive, massive.
Would you have a sense of how much the client is spending to heat, cool, power this house with the renewables versus what the comparable would be with a fossil system at all?
So you've got the initial setup for, so let's start at batteries, for example. So the way we've got it set up is that at night time, the batteries are recycling, or not recycling, sorry, they're being
recharging.
charging at 7 pence a kilowatt. And at daytime, after the off-peak time, it goes from 7 pence a kilowatt to 29 pence a kilowatt hour. And then what you're doing is you're realising the saving that you're making, whereas if you've got a 40 kilowatt battery, it's something like £2 something to get the battery charged at night. And then at 5:30, once the cheap tariff finishes, it then starts running the house and you don't have to go off the grid. So you use the 40 kilowatts up and then it goes off the grid. But in the summer, you're also seeing the solar working, and on a nice sunny day in the winter. And there's nothing more exciting. I know I need to get out more. But there's nothing more exciting than seeing the house running and actually giving to the grid.
Yeah.
So you're actually getting money back. And again, the battery, 40 kilowatts, going back to that, would take something like £8.30, £8.50 to charge. And you're saving yourself that money, times that by 365 days,
Yeah.
you work out that within 3 years you've paid for your batteries, and it's all free,
Yeah.
which is absolutely fantastic.
I mean, it doesn't matter how much money you're spending on a property to know that there's an investment that will pay back with 3 years and it's got a lifespan of 15 years. Yeah. It's a no-brainer.
It's a no-brainer. And when you start explaining it down to people and how that works, they're like, oh, wow, it's a no-brainer. To the point now that we've got clients speaking to us now saying, do you know what? I actually want you to put another 40 kilowatts into the house because we can actually get the running cost of the house down to off the grid with just using energy at £5 or £6 a day, which is brilliant. So just putting that in perspective, that's £5 or £6 a day on running a 10,000 square foot house.
I mean, that's less than the price cap guidelines for an average UK property on electricity and fossil fuel for a house that's, 10 times the size?
Yeah, it's a no-brainer. I mean, yes, you've got to pay the initial cost, but you get that initial cost back. So when you're sitting down with a client and they're going, what's the price per square foot for building? You say, that's the price per square foot for building, but we need to take the renewables onto a separate budget.
Right.
And you can see what the payback is on that. And it's almost like I want to sit down with them and say, I'll tell you what, you pay me X amount over the next 5 years, I'll charge you X amount and we're all better off. But you don't want to do that because I'm not a renewable company, but I'm passionate that rather than fighting the SAPs that you have to get through for a new build, embrace it, and not only embrace it, make it work for you in your favour. Not many companies out there, you're one of the few companies out there that get it, that explain it, that understand how it works, because it's not just putting it in and running away, it's putting it in and then making sure that your house is going to be working for you for 15, 20 years if it's your forever home, and making sure it's working correctly. Because it's not just the first year or 2 years, it's when I work with my customers, it's a relationship over many, many years, and making sure that their house is giving back to what they expect them to get. What we've done here is we've got the wet fan coils, and as I explained to you before, we try and make sure that everything's hidden but easily accessible. And you'd be absolutely amazed the amount of builders out there that put these systems in, and you've got to be 2 foot nothing to be able to get into those areas. I say I want areas where if I can get in there and service it, then that's what I want to do. I want to be able to get to it easily without having to break my neck trying to get in there. So very simply here, you can see the setup here with the wet fan coil. You can get access to it, and all of these panels here are also removable. So we can remove any panel we want to be able to service it. So it's not just servicing as well. I also have this thing, like if I want to change it in 10 years time, I still want to be able to get all the units out without having to destroy a unit. And as we go around the house, I can show you other areas with the MVHR where it's very simple to change the filters. And again, if the client doesn't want to use me to do it, or they don't want, and they want to do it themselves, they can do it themselves without having to go and spend a fortune for someone to take some filters out, vacuum clean it, and charge them 3 times as much as it would cost them to buy the filters themselves and be able to do it. And if I'm in a good mood and it's Christmas time, I'll go and do it for them and change the filters for them. It's not a problem.
The basics of a fan coil unit, especially driven by a ground source heat pump or anything really that is a water-based system, you'll have your pipework, which is your flow and return. This is coming directly from our cooling buffer, which you'll see from the plant room. You'll be taking in 7 degrees, generally 7 degrees flow temperature. This will go through the fan coil unit, through the coil that goes all the way through the body of the unit. That will basically gain heat from the room because we're actually putting a fan through that and actually putting airflow across that coil. Therefore, you're taking 7 degrees, you're raising it up to 12 degrees usually. We try to go for a delta T of 5. That 12 degrees then goes back to the return pipe and back to the cooling buffer to then lose that temperature again by the ground source heat pump cooling it down. And as I said, that's usually free energy with the ground source because your ground source is doing heating somewhere. As a result of doing that heating, you're creating cooling on the other side, and we basically divert that into the cooling buffer. All the fan coil unit is doing is taking the room air, putting that through a fan, hence the name. That then goes through a coil, which then goes into the room to then cool the air down in the room. The temperature of the air coming out of the room will depend on the power of the unit and a few other things, but generally we try and get the rooms down to around 18 to 21 degrees on a really sort of hot summer's day. These are a lot bigger than your standard AC units because these are a water-based system. They're not quite as energy dense as a refrigerant system. That's why they're quite a lot larger than what you normally find, but that's a perfect reason why we try to hide these units in joinery where you can't see them, because we understand with the physics it has to be big. You need a big surface area to make this work, but often people can afford to lose a small amount of space to get their comfort cooling.
What we've done in this room is we've got the wet fan coils again, and we've hidden it. There's an awful lot, believe it or not, going on in this ceiling. There's so much ducting with the MVHR, with the speakers, with the light fittings, and then we've got the in and out for the in air and the out air for the wet fan coils, and then we've hidden the wet fan coil unit upstairs in the service voids in the roof. And that's brilliant because again you can get access to it very easily and be able to service it, and it works very well. But I can't begin to tell you how important it is when you've got so much going on in the ceilings that you do the correct plans and actually have a think about it. And one of the things that some builders don't do is they just think, yeah, we'll put that there, we'll put that there. They forget about all the runs that are needed and all the servicing to get to those areas. And in some cases, if you're not careful, you end up losing another 50, 60 centimetres on the ceilings because no one's thought about how it's all going to run and where the units are going to sit.
And actually feedback from our design team, one of the reasons they love working with iLife is because you actually prioritise all of that and you do it so early on in the project. It's not an afterthought where we've got to try and work out where duct runs need to go with the design that's already done. We're actually involved almost from the start, aren't we? So.
Absolutely.
Another great feature this client has gone for is solar PV panels and a battery. So they actually have a 14 kilowatt system on both flat roofs of the building. It's actually the perfect scenario in the summer particularly, where you've got your solar PV generating, your ground source heat pumps doing the cooling, and you're also dumping that heat into the pool. So it's the best combination of all these technologies working together to actually save you energy and effectively money as well. All of the technologies need to work seamlessly together. The PV panels on this job have micro-inverters on them. That is a device that sits on the back of each panel and converts DC to AC at the source. So you don't have a big inverter sitting in a plant room getting hot somewhere. You have these individual devices that are behind the panels that are optimizing the output of the panels. There's a range of reasons we do this. The most common reason we do this is to mitigate any shading issues, because if you don't have direct sunlight on that set of panels, what you'll get is the lowest output panel will be the limiting panel of the whole array. So if you can only generate a certain voltage from one panel, all the other ones have to follow that because they'll be on series. With microinverters, you don't have that problem. If one panel gets shaded, it doesn't affect the whole array. If one panel in 20 years time breaks, it doesn't matter. All the panels are separate. They're all in a parallel system.
One of the briefs of this house was to make sure we maximise the solar to the point that they wanted to go above and beyond the amount of solar they could get. So we've got this over here in this area, we've got the half height shutters. So the idea being is you can still get the natural light inside, but if you come over here closer, you'll see that this is also where all the, as well as the very, very top of the house, where we've got on the flat roof, we've got solar, we've also got above the loggia, we've gone as maximise as much solar as we possibly could. And in the summer, you'll see the house running at nothing and giving back to the grid as well. And that's even after it's charged the batteries, it's then giving back to the grid as well, which is brilliant. So as I said, you could have days where you're actually giving back and actually making money on the house. One of the things that we put in for the client in this house was a laundry situation where we actually had the laundry on the first floor, because what's the point of going downstairs to bring it all back upstairs again? We then managed to persuade them to put in this most amazing system to stop the kids from leaving their clothes on the floor primarily, and also it's quite a nice little gimmick as well, is a laundry jet. And you literally take your clothes off and chuck them in, and it goes to the laundry baskets in the laundry room to then be able to put the laundry in. Unfortunately, it doesn't iron or fold away, but it's a really great way of just getting the clothes over to the central area without leaving clothes on the floor for the children, and not having to empty laundry baskets, and it's more hygienic. This is where the laundry, the client's laundry comes. It comes from the machine, the Swift machine here, the laundry jet, drops into the basket, then the client's able to get easy access to the wash machine and the tumble dryer. And the great thing as well, with it being on the tariff for the evening tariff, is that you can set all these modern technologies now where the wash machine, tumble dryers all start kicking in after 11:30 p.m. So you're on the cheap tariff and you're not paying 28 pence a kilowatt, you're only paying 7 pence a kilowatt. So it actually makes washing machines and tumble dryers extremely cost efficient to run. So what we did in here, we put the ground source heat pump, which then goes to the heat exchanger, which heats the swimming pool up, which is very, very efficient. Because of the cheap rate tariff at 7 pence a kilowatt by Octopus, we've also put an air source heat pump in, which kicks in between 11:30 and 5:30, and that just also kickstarts the swimming pool as well.
We have all of our customers on our portal, on the Enphase portal, which allows us to look at each customer's panels, what they're doing, if they need any support, and we often know there's a problem before the customer even knows, so we can sort out a lot of issues just from having remote monitoring. On this particular project, because they've got the micro-inverters, because they've got the heat pump that they've got, we can do remote monitoring from that as well. So any issues that they face, they can give us a call, or we get a notification from that manufacturer that there is a problem and we need to sort it out. Often we don't have that problem, but it's nice to have because it saves us a visit. It also is very proactive for the customer because they often don't actually know they even have a problem at that time, and it saves a lot of hassle. The customer wanted the peace of mind that their equipment would be in tip-top condition and we would look after it. So they've actually gone for a service plan with us, which gives them that peace of mind that we are going to be looking after their heat pump and their solar PV system. As part of the package that they're on at the moment, they have the peace of mind with us that we're going to be looking after the system. We also optimize the system for them, looking at their usage patterns to make sure that we can change anything we need to try and make it even more efficient for them. And they also get an included service every year for the ground source heat pump and all the fan coil units in the property as well.
I think one of the reasons why I've embraced renewables so much is the environment is changing. And I think with regards to the responsibility that we have, actually telling people that these new houses actually use less energy than a typical, a family home, a four-bedroom house in Surrey somewhere, compared to a new home, and saying, actually guys, we're actually using less energy, embrace it. Yes, it comes with a cost to begin with, but you get that money back very quickly. And being able to show my clients that and actually educating them from how I was educated with regards to renewables. And I appreciate not everybody can afford renewables, but you still are showing them the options and what they can have. And we'll actually put a situation in where we can actually allow for that to be added at a later date. So even when we're building a house and we're putting in the air source heat pump, we make sure, or it may not have the air source heat pump yet because it's an older house and it's a gas boiler, but we make sure that the pipes, for example, the underfloor heating are put closer together. So most people won't even know what that means, but it means that when the air source heat pump has to go in, with the pipes being slightly closer together, it means that they're going to actually have a house which is going to be warm enough.
Yeah, you can run it at a lower flow temperature.
Exactly. Talking about technology, one of the things that I find very helpful to show people, this is a Friday evening and it's very dark, but we've got an app which shows real-time information. One of the things that I do is to make sure that clients' houses are working correctly, so I'll always be able to log into their houses to see how it's doing. It's a bit sad because I sit down on a Friday evening and look at it and I think, yeah, great, it's working, it's doing what I said it would do. On this app itself, it will tell you how much solar you're getting on the wattage and kilowatts. It will tell you how much you're drawing off the grid. It will tell you how much energy there is in the battery and if the battery is giving back to the house. So that's a really good way of seeing the real-time information. Depending on the energy provider, so for this house is Octopus, and I'm able to see for the client how much it's costing to run that house per day because they've given me their access details. Not everybody has to do that, but I just be able to report back to them. And I can also see on an individual idea, I can see the kilowattage on what each, again, this is pretty sad, but I can see for the client on what wattage, kilowatts they're using for the cooker, for the oven, for the lights, for the inverters with the ground source heat pumps. I can tell exactly how much. So right now they're using 4.5 kilowatts on the inverter, and it tells you what percentage they're using for that for the ground source heat pump, which is really good. It's really good information to have.
And obviously, as a developer, this sort of feedback and this data allows you to then design homes which are much more economical to run.
Yeah.
Because you've designed it, you've seen it in operation, you've got the data, and then you can reiterate presumably for
Absolutely.
the next project.
And no matter how many times I speak to architects about the plant rooms are never big enough. So you're always telling the guy you need a really nice sized plant room for the chaps to be able to come in and service it, and also for you to be able to go and see how it's doing and if it's working correctly, because things do go faulty, but it's how quickly you can get that serviced and back running correctly, because it always happens when as soon as the ground source heat pump kicks in for the winter, that's when I have all the servicing take place for my clients' equipment, so that it's all working naturally, and it's going to be a lot less to have it serviced in normal working hours than it is for an emergency. Just embrace it, do the servicing, do the wet fan coils or the air conditioning. It just makes everything a lot easier. It makes my life a lot easier, because I don't get that phone call Christmas Eve saying, oh, my system's not working. And then you say, oh, when did you last have it serviced? And they go, about 3 years ago. And go, well, there you go, there's your answer. You've sort of given yourself a hiding to nothing there. So you want to make sure that everything's kept in tip-top condition. If
you're thinking about heat pump, solar, battery, MVHR or air conditioning for your property, then contact us at Elite Renewables. You can give us a ring on 020 8706 0056, or you can contact us through our website at eliterenewables.co.uk. We make the process really simple, so we'll have an initial chat where we'll be able to give you a ballpark estimate for your project. We'll then send one of our technical team over to your property to visit you, to understand the property in a bit more detail, and to conduct a detailed survey so that we can give you an exact quote. Contact us by giving us a ring or dropping us an email through our website today.